The jeers that rang out at the cruel mismatch between Glory heavyweight champion Rico Verhoeven and kickboxing debutant Antonio Bigfoot Silva continue to echo in the combat sports world. But was this part of the franchise's plan all along? Pairing the king of kickboxing with an ex-fighter coming off 5 straight losses got people talking weeks before Glory 46 in Guangzhou, China. All that attention, be it positive or negative, generated an interest from both sets of fans. Kickboxing had a reputation to uphold, while MMA dreamed of a humiliating upset. What a time to inaugurate Glory's first show in China, and as co-founder Scott Rudman explains, the floodgates have only just opened. This was the first of many events in China, he told the Post. Our commitment to this country is massive. We are planning a full calendar in China next year. It's wonderful here because they know what kickboxing is. Chinese people invented Kung Fu, it's in their DNA. In the US, we have to educate our fans about stand-up combat, but we don't need to do that in China. Despite the predictable outcome, Verhoeven dominating Silva in every department before securing a second-round TKO, the Glory 46 Super Fight Series was broadcast on television in 175 countries around the world. It was also available on UFC Fight Pass, a streaming service with access to much of the Ultimate Fighting Championship's live events and back catalog, and live-streamed on the top 5 sports platforms in China, including Tencent and Sina Sports. So how did a 5-year-old kickboxing company bag such a nifty deal in China? When we do business in China, we leave it to Glory China, Rudman said. Glory China is separate from Glory Sports International. It has majority Chinese-owned stakeholders, so it's a Chinese company, run by Chinese people, for a Chinese league. We are the ones with the know-how to put events on, but this is the right way to do business here. Glory was founded by Rudman and current chairman Pierre Andrand in 2012. Within 5 years, the duo established the world's #1 kickboxing league at the expense of the previously successful platform K1. We're clearly the dominant brand in the US and Europe, but they're really isn't one in Asia, said Rudman. K1 used to dominate Japan, but it's a shadow of its former self. Their local Japan business is in the hands of one guy, and the international business, which they don't even have anymore, is in the hands of another. It's a disaster at the moment. K1's unfortunate demise, Orson would say, inability to keep up with the money fight era, played right into the hands of Glory, and Rudman and co pounced on Asia. We did some shows in Japan last year and we'll be back again, but China is a very interesting market, Rudman said. There's plenty of competition, but most of their promotions have quite a reputation for match fixing. That is based on fact. Unlike us, none of them really have a roster of top athletes from around the world competing in a systematic and professional manner. When our athletes step into the ring, they know they will be watched by millions around the world. No other kickboxing platform comes close. While Glory may have the Chinese kickboxing scene in the palm of its hand, there is another new sheriff in town: the UFC. Ever since the UFC empire was sold for an unprecedented $4 billion, $31 billion earlier this year, the new owners have been trying desperately to make some of that money back. The enormous Chinese market inevitably became of interest, and, sure enough, the UFC will make its China debut in the form of UFC Shanghai on November 25. Will these movements affect Glory's own market entry in any way? Not according to Rudman. MMA in China is almost illegal, he explained. It cannot be broadcasted. I'm actually surprised that they are allowing the UFC to hold the Shanghai event, but it's amazing for them. All the best fighters want to fight the best. If you're an MMA star, you want to be in the UFC. You don't want to be in Bellator or One. You want to be in the UFC. If you're a kickboxer, you want to be in Glory. Glory can now smugly sit back and watch UFC Shanghai with the knowledge that it hosted a China event before they did. Granted, Verhoeven vs. Silva was more a gimmick than a competitive kickboxing bout, but it did the job. The combat sports community was sufficiently stirred up and will have to keep tabs on Glory, whether they like it or not. In terms of persuading big-name fighters to travel east in future, Rudman is fairly confident. Verhoeven and Silva had to be convinced a little bit, but it wasn't to do with China so much, he said. Their biggest concern was working around the different time zone. So Verhoeven went to Koh Samui a week before the event, and Silva arrived in China very early. For normal people, it's okay to feel jet-lagged for a few days. We suffer a little bit, but we don't have to step into a ring and make a competitive fight at the top level against a guy who is trying to kill you.